Game begin.
All right. Hello and welcome back to the Spike Colony podcast. I am here with Thursday, August 6th, League 3-0 competitor, Michael J. Flores.
And very briefly, the league leader. I'm about to lose the league lead to Bayer.
Is that because you're planning on skipping tomorrow, or you're planning on losing?
Well,
tomorrow?
I am. I'm at the beach, and Bayer since before Sacred Torch, right? But Bayer switched to my 75 at Sacred Torch, and he's just been playing my mono blue deck.
Just
75.
on the Dreadnought grind.
He hasn't lost a match. He beat me 2 weeks ago when I was on Neil's deck, and he beat Capital last week.
Every pre-modern player has like a phase in their life where they're just like, well, I guess it's time to take up the Dreadnought grind. It happened to Rich Busey. It's happening to Bayer. It's happened to you. It's happening to you sort of like in the LobsterCon era.
I made the best Dreadnought deck. I don't know what to say. So
I've had my Dreadnought grind. Many friends of the podcast.
Did you really?
Grind. Yeah. I mean, well, famously, I won the side of it.
Play. I mean, like before LobsterCon, you would practice it. You would beat whatever idiot fucking Eternal Dragon Exalted Angel deck of the week I had at the time. Like that's not your Dreadnought guide. You ended up playing land tax at that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I smartly lent all my cards so that someone else could get second place at that tournament.
That person, young Itai Kurtzman. Oh, your Dreadnought deck was powerful. You know, I didn't even own my own Dreadnoughts at that point.
Yeah, that was crazy. You still got in before the gold rush, of course. No, I mean, I played. I guess there wasn't like a period where I was playing Dreadnought like at every tournament. Like obviously, I've never played Dreadnought
like I've played at any tournaments.
Like I've played Groton.
In that era, you played Replenish.
Oh, I would play
while they let you.
Yeah, I would play it online though. Like I would play like, you know, every now and then it would just be like my online deck.
Didn't even count. There was no mtgo.com.
Yeah, there's no league. Yeah.
Back then. But I don't believe you ever had a.
Yeah. I never. The only time that I ever staked an important tournament on my Dreadnought world was the side event in 24. So I guess my Dreadnought grind is still ahead of me. I mean, I played. I probably played like, you know, some like 20 to 30 matches in the pre. Gosh, yeah, I played it a bit in because I was like, oh, maybe I'll just play it in 25 when Rich won, because I was like, oh well, I'm pretty good at this deck and this might just be the deck. And then I played it, and I probably should have played it in that main event, but also you know, I wanted to get fancy.
Yeah, but you didn't really know. No, I mean, I guess you knew, or you should have known, but you didn't really know.
Know what?
Like you had played against the deck. I mean, you played it the next day.
No, this was in 25.
Oh, the year that I didn't play.
Yeah, in 25. In 25. I like. What did I do? In 25, I actually played Blue White Dreadnought in the day one side event, and I played my Blue White Dreadnought deck with the Masticores in the sideboard, which was pretty cool. And it came up. I took a game off like a mono black deck because I was like just sided out all my.
I've never done. So that's mythology.
Sided out all my I know, mono black and Dreadnought. I sided out all my Dreadnoughts, and I just tried to win the game with Meddling Mages and Masticores, and it worked one game and didn't work the next. And then I lost to the Manny Moutinho Elves deck, which is also
So
this was the Sky Shroud Poacher.
Yeah. Sky Shroud Poacher. You know, I was thinking about this
Trinity Green, right?
Because you know, Cradle Control is kind of an extension of Untappable Elves, right? Like, don't you think? Like you kind of
Cradle
started
Control is
it
a literal rebranding of Untapperless
of
Elves.
Untappable
One
Elves.
one
But
Untapperless Elves was not accurate branding. It was branding. It was two
it was
Untapper
a,
Elves, and
it
then
was
Fran was like, "That's interesting. Why don't we just call it this cool name from the other format?" Which is also like a joke. Like Cradle Control is like a joke name from Legacy. Like Cradle Control is not a control deck. It's just like a mid
it just
range
says cradles.
deck that has Gaia's Cradle in it.
So I'm
And
just like dreaming
recently
of the
banned
day.
Badger Mole Cub nut shenanigans.
Okay, so I'm just dreaming of the day because like, you always accuse me of like being very like stodgy, like not updating my priors or whatever. But when I didn't
Yes,
beat
yes, I
Claire
do
in
believe
that
that. I
match,
do believe that you failed to update your priors.
I put Impulse in my deck. I mean, like I literally hate Impulse. I hate it. Like the number of times I've talked to you about how much I hate Impulse and how much I love AK, and I
Right,
took
but
out and I put Impulse in my deck.
the ultimate goal is not to just put Impulse in your deck one time. The ultimate goal is to be like water, right? Is to seek only the truth, and that it's just like
You can't just do that at an
reevaluating.
unlimited basis. People have only so much time in their lives.
Well,
You only have so much time in your life
you
for Magic. You need to like balance the thing that makes your life better.
you have to
And unlimited
multiply.
searching for the truth is not going to make your life better.
Oh, that's just where you and I disagree. Like the truth is all that
Dude,
matters.
I have a friend and I'm like, oh, what's the most important thing to you? And she's just like, oh, I want to marry a man with these particular religious values. And I'm like, you're a fucking liar. You want a hot, tall guy who has a pocket full of money. And if he has these religious values, then like great. Because otherwise, once you go off into the desert, there's plenty of dudes praying right now to your God that you can marry. Right. Like, and she's like, well, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, of course not. Because you say that the thing that is important to you is this, but that's not what's going to make you happy. Like you want this guy to be handsome and tall and rich and kind and good to, your children. And like, maybe there's some XYZ, AAA overlap of that person who also falls under your particular philosophical,
Yeah,
slice of
but
the pie. But
in this
like
case,
just unlimited searching for the slice of the pie is not going to make you happy. And in
in,
fact,
in
does
this
not meet your minimum requirements.
you cannot actually conflate religious husband with the truth, right? Because like in this scenario, if this person was seeking the truth, they would obviously realize about themselves that they would be happy, religious or not religious, other
Dude,
qualities notwithstanding. Whereas myself,
the,
I seek the truth and I seek an alignment to the truth. I seek like an alignment of like my satisfaction with the truth. And this is why when I like, accuse other people, not just you, right? I'm obviously accusing the world of not checking their priors. This is like a thing that, I do with Mox Diamond famously, but also just like in several other different things in different decks. And this is something that you do. Like you have plenty of priors that you want other people to check. And the goal is not to, like earn a point every time you checked your own prior and you
I
also
hope no one ever.
make
I hope
someone.
no one ever updates to my deck, and I'm the only one playing it, and I will win a lot more if that's the case.
Yeah, I mean, but
Like,
that's
that's actually the best for me.
right. But I mean, I've been getting really into like extraordinarily cursory knowledge of finance. Lan lent me the book Fortune's Formula, which is just like a collection of the various math and science, like and economics nerds who, figured out how to angle blackjack, roulette, the stock market, all that
How many
stuff.
chapters are devoted to John?
No, well, so this unfortunately for John, this is a book about the 40s through the 80s. And like basically
Because
in
there
the
was
Wild West before like the concept of math and computers was just like brand new. So it's just a bunch of nerds who are just like, well, if I put this into my computer, it'll probably tell me what stock goes up. Lo and behold, the computer tells them what stock goes up. It freaking rules. But beyond that,
they had an edge.
they
You
had
know,
edge.
when John first started arbitraging sports betting, you could actually arbitrage sports betting. Like the prices would be different on two different websites.
Yeah, that's a
they would
classic,
just
right? Yeah.
they would just buy on one and sell on the other one, and then just make the spread. And like they did that for a while, right? Like before the website just it was crazy. Like the internet was obviously so much less connected. Today there'd be like 47 TikTok
Yeah. Well, okay,
channels
so
devoted
I
to
will
this
give you
within
I will
one
give
day.
you the reason why I brought this up, because you said that I hope that nobody plays my Dreadnought deck. And basically what you're describing, of course, is your the fact that you want to cling on to the information gap that you have, right? But
So
the
let me just pause one thing because this is funny, and then you can say whatever you want. So I played my Dreadnought deck at the league finals, a month ago or whatever. And the only change I made was to take out, I remember, 2 random sideboard cards, and I played 2 Curse Totems in my sideboard because I thought I was playing Matt W in the first. I found out I was playing Matt W in the first round at the last minute because Simon had dropped out, so it changed the standings. But Matt W thought he was playing against Yosef, so he brought mono red. So, and what ended up happening was I played against mono red goblins and mono in the 3 rounds of the tournament. And Lan asked me if I would have changed anything about my deck at the end of the night. Because Lan, he just does the classic Lan thing. Doesn't play the last week of Swiss. If he played the last week of Swiss, he probably would have qualified for the top 8. Instead, he went to the movies with Steve Saban that week. Okay, but he comes to the league finals to just like write notes, right? So he comes and he asks me if I do anything different. I'm like, well, I obviously would not have played the Curse Totems because I didn't play against Tradewind Survival in the first round. I played against Mono Red. I would have rather had whatever I caught, like an Essence Flare or whatever, or something else that I cut. And he's like, what about the Brain Freeze? And I'm like, oh, I drew the main deck Brain Freeze all 3 game ones.
yeah, against mono red.
And I lost 2 of the game ones, right? So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'll actually address that because I think that's like a extremely salient to the podcast before I finish the point of like, if you just think that the metagame is the market and you think that the market is irrational, that's when you make a ton of money, right? Which like you're just exploiting some gap.
Sorry. When you say the market is irrational, I would say it different. I would say typically the market is the market, right? The market is just a big scale. Like it's a voting / weighing system. But I think that there are elements of the market, not the whole market, right, that are just underinformed. And that edge comes from exploiting the underinformed portions of the weighing / voting.
There's an excellent passage in Fortune's Formula that addresses that. On one hand, you have active investors, and one hand, you have passive investors, right? And the active investors cannot outperform the passive investors because for every active investor that's winning, there's one on the other side that's losing. So it's just like considering that
in reality, for everyone that's winning, there are like 4 that are losing.
Yeah. I mean, it's zero. The point is the market is a zero-sum game, and the other point is that given that that transaction fees exist, right? Brokers fees and transaction fees exist. Nobody's winning.
People have enormous amounts of capital are winning, right? Because if you don't have enormous amount, if you have enormous amounts of capital, you can wash out transaction fees.
Yeah. Well, your edge still has to be larger than the transaction fee at the end of the day. But that's kind of the nitty gritty, right? Which is just basically to say that if you took one guy who just puts it in the S&P 500 or the total market index or whatever, and then you have another guy who's just freaking making trades, right? And you just multiply each of those guys by 1,000, right? They end up in the same place, except for the trades guy is out, right? But if you happen to be,
you have to make bets on the order of $5,000 to $10,000, or otherwise you always get eaten by transaction.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like the whole population, right? So John Finkel is obviously way ahead, right? And so are very many great investors of all time, famous money counter spreadsheet computer program guys. But my overall point, because there's no transaction fees with let's say changing a few cards in your deck from tournament to tournament, there's no friction there. But I think that ultimately you have the choosing some sort of deck, and it is all about having a thesis, right? So if you invest in a bunch of energy stocks because you think that the data centers are going to need a lot of energy and it's just smart to be in energy right now. You have a thesis that in the future that's going to happen. Much the same way that if you show up to LobsterCon and you think that everyone's going to be playing Moneyball Black, so you sort of calculate that in what ways are the Moneyball Black people irrational? Well, one way is that maybe they overestimate
Moneyball Black.
Yeah. I think that I do think that they're irrational, but you have to exploit it, right? You can't just be like, oh, there's going to be like a bunch of Moneyball Black, and my deck of choice is not like I'm not going to change any cards in my deck, or I'm not going to change my deck, right? Like,
so
if
you
were
why I played AK, right? So
exactly, that's a great example. That's the reason why you played AK.
I tested, and I was winning half the games against Moneyball Black, and I won all the games that I cast 2 AKs. So. Yeah. So I was just like, well, I think that they overvalue their matchup because I'm playing against competent players and I'm not even losing half the games, right? But I started with the thesis that AK was bad because Andy had told me that what happens if they have Withered Wretch, they can turn off your AK. Then I actually played it and I won all the games that I cast 2 AKs. So I was just like, oh, this seems, and you're never winning in stage 1, right? Like, because they can always kill your first Dreadnought, right? So you're always winning in stage.
Well, no, not always. Not always, right? They're actually really bad at killing Dreadnought in game 1 because they have maybe four smothers, right, and edicts.
Well, and some of them cost more than 1 mana, right? You could just daze them out. So like, So yeah, that's why I played AK. I think that if I weren't, well, it's also, I don't know. Like I hadn't played nearly as much Dreadnought Mirror. All the Dreadnought Mirror I played, AK was crushing it. So I was just like. I think I played against Phyrexia, who just top 8'd the Sacred Torch. I'm like, you can't ever lose if you're the AK deck and they're the Impulse deck. Or was it?
It was Noah.
Yeah, it was Noah, not
Phyrexia. Yeah, you're playing Noah.
Yeah.
So you had a thesis that we basically all had very similar ideas surrounding like Moneyball being a big target and Dreadnought, of course, being a big target. And that's actually part of why you played the Brain Freeze, right? Which is just that, like, so people, like the market thinks that certain decks beat
it could have been
Dreadnought.
A peak. And in the immortal words of
Don't get me
Lanny
started
Huang,
on peak, okay? There's
the
no
immortal
thesis.
Words of Lanny Huang, you've been playing how long, and you still don't know what's in their hand. That's what you said to me. And
I'll tangent here.
And
I 5-0'd.
Like, you made me look for these peaks for like 2 hours.
I 5-0'd with a GAT deck that had peak as the 13th cantrip, and I was just like, oh no, like this is so bad. I 5-0'd with this. And
Lan Feng Fong, it was a 1-up in my deck.
It was one in my deck. It was the 13th cantrip. It was a 1-up. Every single time I cast it, I was just like playing against Burn. I'm like, what do they have in their hand? I'm like, oh, they've been sitting on Fire Blast the entire game. Very interesting. You have Swords to Plowshares when I haven't cast a single Swords to Plowshares target.
I just feel like they've got me. Like, whether getting me is they can blow up my Dreadnought or they can kill me, whatever the worst thing is, and I'm like, all right, I feel like they've got me. I need to win anyway. That's how I usually approach those matchups. And it turns out you win anyway. And usually it involves just jamming.
Yeah. In any case, I'll scroll back. So I had a very similar thesis, right? Which is why I played a Grotog deck that had.
Your deck is not irrational. I thought it was pretty good.
No, I'm saying my thesis was similar to your thesis, which was just that.
No, it's full of things that I like. You had AK and 4 Psychotogs. Although
that's what that's my
I think
point.
The market is proving that Meddling Mages actually belongs in your deck. Like that seems to me like Meddling Mage has been the best card in every GAT deck I've seen.
We can litigate that later if you want.
I'll let you continue your point. Tell me again how you played Peak. You made fun of me for. I didn't even play Peak. I considered playing Peak, and it became a Brain Freeze, and the Brain Freeze.
Well, I was actually seeking the truth, right? Like I had basically a lot of people are just like, oh, like Peak opt, and compare a Peak to opt, right? So you have to be like, okay, well, this is a very difficult concept to hold in your brain because you have to assign a value to knowing what's in your opponent hand at a specific time versus the value of Scribe 1. I, as we've discussed previously, I place, tremendous value on a mana or a card. I think that like one reason why I went ahead with cutting AK from the Grotog deck was just another truth-seeking moment where I was just like, what if the impact of this card costing 2 mana and the fact that I have to run 4 of them in my deck is really actually not. Yeah, right. Is really not worth the upside.
That's not the truth.
And
oh my God, Laney, what if you played Mental Note in AK?
Yeah,
Have you tried that? I'm now a Mental Note AK stan. I'm just declaring myself a Mental Note AK stan.
These thoughts had crossed my mind. These thoughts had obviously crossed my mind. You don't have to sell me on Mental Note.
2026. I am now a Mental Note AK stan, and my deck is Nimble Knot. Knot.
I'm in. I've always been in on that. I mean, we also need some of the predict memory lapse Sam Black action, but
no, that's too slow.
Going off to the side. So then people have just like, Laney, what about peak? Laney, what about peak? And I basically did the thing. I'm like, okay, look, I haven't played the card. I actually haven't played. I haven't played the card in Dreadnought. I haven't played the card in Grotog. I haven't played the card with Meddling Mage. I haven't played the card without Meddling Mage. And every single time people say it, I'm just like, oh yeah, I think I know what cards are in their hand, and I need to get the right cards in my hand. And so I think Scry 1 is more powerful than Peak. But I was like, okay, one thing about the Grotog list right now is that I want to play more than 12 1-mana cantrips, and I'm out of 12 mana cantrips. Sleight of Hand, Opt, and Portent are the only ones, right? A lot of people like to trim the Sleight of Hand because they're just like, oh, whatever. And I'm just like, my response to trim Sleight of Hand is, well, why not just play 61 cards in your deck then, right? Like you're trying to play the maximum amount of one mana cantrips. It's like fundamental to the structure. Whether or not you would play 13,
would you
14,
consider
15,
Chromatic Sphere not a 1-mana cantrip?
I would caveat that I mean 1-mana cantrips with selection, right? Because you have to outweigh the downside of the 1 mana. Like I would. Are
there a fair amount like Obsessive Search you could play? Obsessive Search.
That's the one that with Madness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just says draw a card, so it's no selection. The next, like, there's no remaining 1-mana card selection cantrips. That exists in the pre-modern format, with except like Mental Note, Peak, Sapphire Charm. Honestly, there is like, I wouldn't play Urza's Bauble, right? But at least Urza's Bauble is 0 mana, and there.
I'm now an Urza's Bauble Mental Note. Accumulated knowledge stand.
I have
this
more.
Is my new deck.
And Urza's Bauble lets you see a card, right? Urza's Bauble lets you see a card.
Kidding? This is the greatest deck I've ever brewed.
Okay.
Live on Actually, that's not true. I brewed a deck on a podcast and then won a PPTQ the next with Chapin, and then I won a PPTQ that week.
But in any case, I was like, okay, I'm not going to cut an Opt for a Peak, but I will play Peak as the 13th card, right? And so I cut a Daze from the deck that I've been tinkering with currently, which incidentally has 0 Meddling Mage, and I peaked my opponent a bunch, and granted, I didn't really consider if like Daze was so much better in that spot, but every single time I looked at their hand, I was just like, this information does not help me at all. Which is an exaggeration. Like every now and then I would be like, oh, they're holding a Red Blast, right? And now like they know that I know that they know that they have a Red Blast, but like at the end of the day, I just had
whether or not you use the Red Blast. Sometimes.
Yeah, you'd be motivated. For example, if somebody duresses a counterspell, I tend to be motivated to just use the counterspell more because like
I just protect the information of the rest of your
No. If they duress and see a counterspell, right? So if they duress my hand, and there's 2 counterspells, and they like play a spell, and I'm just kind of like, okay, do I want to cash in the counterspell for tempo, or do I want to try to force them to never play their important spell until they find their next duress? Like obviously once you reveal more information that affects how you play. In the blast situation, it didn't really come up because I had my own blast. So anyways, my point is, I don't know if knowing what's in your opponent's hand is better than Scry 1. And I also don't know if draw a card, look at opponent's hand is better than the next card, which might be a Daze or Fire Ice. Like the third Daze and third Fire Ice is part of the potential issue. But in any case, I am not sure like that. I'm exaggerating that I think Peak is rancid. Like I do think Peak is like bad, But it's not. It's like I'm confident Peak is worse than Opt, but I'm not confident that Draw a Card is worse than Fire Ice or Daze, which are like situational cards that don't cantrip.
Talk about these cards like blatantly in the abstract, right? So Opt is better in a combo deck on average, right? I think than Peak is. But there are times, I don't know that you would ever want to replace Opt with Peak in a combo deck, but there are certainly times you want to replace another cantrip with Peak. And so, like,
well,
think about
not Sleight of Hand or Portent.
Drawtog is not a combo deck.
No, I'm saying if your combo deck plays Opt, Sleight of Hand, and Portent, right? Those are the cards I would say that.
Drawtog is the rock with Gush. Don't get your britches.
I've never denied this.
Okay, so the fact that it has Gush is meaningful, but it is still the rock with Gush. So if we take a step back, do you ever play Mario Kart? I'm sure you play Mario Kart.
Yes, okay. Everyone listening to this podcast has played Mario Kart.
I played Mario Kart starting in college, but I was never a great Mario Kart player. But my daughter is unsurprisingly, maybe she's not a good Mario Kart player anymore because
she's the best Mario Kart player in your orbit, right?
No, I mean, but we have huge Mario Kart fun. There are multiple people in my family that are good Mario Kart players, and Bella always will finish near the top, right? She's very good. She's good objectively, not just good against these random Floreses and cousins, right? So
there's just literally no way to measure that.
Just imagine what I'm saying is true for the purpose of this story.
Okay.
Right, so
she's mythic one at Mario.
If I don't have turn control, probably my chances of beating Bella is 0, right? Because I will lose too much time going over the side of the track sometimes, right? That I'll never beat her, but I could beat her some percentage of the time, probably more than 1 race in 10 if I have turn control, right? Maybe at one point before she got a lot better, I was winning close to 50%, but I would never win without turn control. So if you're a player who, let's say you're Itai Kurtzman, but maybe less good than Itai Kurtzman, who's good enough to play on the Pro Tour, right? And in fact, good enough to win money on the Pro Tour. And you are parachuted into a pre-modern tournament and perhaps parachuted into a large pre-modern tournament. But you don't know that much about pre-modern. Right, maybe you've watched some LSV videos where he doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
you don't have to use the Itai example. You could literally just be like, "Oh, this is what Sperling did when he dropped in. He played Dreadnought, and he was like, oh, I used Peak because I didn't know what cards."
Yeah, so Peak will help a player who is competent but doesn't know the format that well much more than it would help someone like
but you're just
who knows what is in the opponent's hand.
But I mean, all you're doing though is levering up the value of the information, which is not
but they don't know the information, right? So when I watch Bosch and Roll play pre-modern, he's just and he's obviously a good player. He played in Pauper Genesis, I played in Pauper Genesis. He got 1 more Swiss point than I did and made the top, whatever. But he's a format tourist in both cases, right? But he just what he's thinking about while I'm watching him play pre-modern games is flabbergasting to me. Why are you thinking about this? This is the only thing that matters in this situation,
I think the Bosch and Roll example is not it's not the point. It's not the point of Peak, right? You can't really make the case you should only play Peak if you don't know what the cards are, right?
I'm just saying if you and I probably wouldn't gain as much value from Peak in a Dreadnought deck, for example, as we would from Opt. But another player who was competent but wasn't obsessed with pre-modern and had his own pre-modern podcast might get more value out of Peak than we do, to the point that they might win the tournament.
Yeah. I mean, but this is both. This is neither here nor there. It's not it's not relevant to the people evaluating Peak in their decks that do know what cards are in the format and do have a pretty good instinct about what's in their opponent's hand.
I had a fantasy a few years ago, because there was a trios tournament, and I can remember the trios tournament was for something that mattered, not just bragging rights or whatever. And I wanted to take Brian Hacker as my third. And I was just I'll put him on Mono Blue Dreadnought. Brian Hacker was good enough that he could just walk in and win a Masks block PTQ with Mono Blue Tempo deck, having never seen the never seen the any card in the format, right? He just intuitively was so good he was able to win a PTQ. Something I was never able to do that season, despite the fact that I made like 8 top 8s, right? So, and I'm like, this was during the era where you were on the idea that white blue Dreadnought was just better than mono blue Dreadnought. And I largely bought into what you were saying, but I thought if I can make Hacker play the pre-modern seed in my trios event, then I would put him on mono blue Dreadnought because I don't think he knows what to name with Metal Image. That's actually the thought process that I had. But like, he's so good that he would just be able to raffle stomp the room with mono blue Dreadnought, but I just don't need him naming the wrong cards.
Yeah, well, it's actually weird.
I think it's terrible.
It was actually weird because I put Meddling Mages in Sondike's deck, and I didn't even like. I literally had the thought in my mind. I'm like, well, one, Meddling Mage is like, you know, a trickier card to play for a format tourist, and then two, I don't even want Meddling Mage in my deck for the Sacred Torch metagame because Meddling Mage was in my deck when I had a very, very high expectation of playing against Replenish and Enchantress, which at Sacred Torch was like not represented at the right numbers. But I also didn't have like the bandwidth to like figure out what I was going to do instead because I hadn't spent any time testing
it is
like a mashup of
so good against Dreadnought.
Yeah, it's so good against Dreadnought, but this is like
flabbergastingly good against Dreadnought in like all the decks that can play it.
Like I have not lost a single match to Dreadnought since cutting Mox in my deck. Like at this point, what, 6 months ago? Like I haven't lost a single match to Dreadnought. I am like 15-0 against Dreadnought with mages, without mages, like with Guy's Blessing, without Guy's Blessing, but more so. I mean, I guess more so with Guy's Blessing, et cetera, et cetera. But like the point is the Meddling Mages are not for Dreadnought. They incidentally moved the Dreadnought matchup from whatever high 90s to higher 90s. They exist in Grotog specifically because they plausibly move the Enchantress matchup from some like evidently sub 50% to greater than 50%. But I am now...
you like in like the 56% game one.
Well... Oh, no. In game one, so in game one, the most important factor is obviously being on the play. So it's like, okay, in order, game one. Enchantress has to have a median draw, right? Which is like, I don't know, 1 mulligan, Amiri's Guile, and hopefully fewer Argothian Enchantress than Enchantress's Presence. Because
that sounds like a sub-median draw, by the way.
I think that, like, I would say that the curve for Enchantress is thick around drawing 1 Enchantress effect, or sometimes keeping a 7 that has like a Miri's Guile and some interaction, right? Like that's like that's like what the deck is designed to do. If you have 2 Enchantress effects, I think you're like extraordinarily happy because you're like really good against Grotog in those spots. And I would say that happens more often than I think it should. In so far as
your opponent can't damage you, right?
I get
is that pretty good?
I get really, really mad when they draw 2 Enchantresses because I'm just like, that's just not fair.
Why? That's just what their deck does. It's like when I lost to Dreadnought with Neil's red deck and I sent Neil what happened. He's like, oh, it sounds like an outlier. I'm like, that's just Dreadnought. I mean, like...
Well, that's... I do think that for a long time in pre-modern, people were like irrationally mad at like Dreadnought always having it. And then like somebody did the Python script and was just like, okay, well, if you mulligan at any reasonable frequency, you will have it like more than 60, more than 70% of the time.
In the deciding game, I had triple interaction and Buyer beat my triple interaction. That's why Neil thought it was an outlier. And I'm like, his deck has Gush. We just draw off the top of our deck. Of course he's going to beat my triple interaction sometimes, right?
Yeah. This is Dreadnought against Red Deer time. Anyways, so Meddling Mage and Grotog, I was like, if you can mage and counter all the Enchantresses, that's really good. If you have a beatdown hand and you can mage Plowshares and counter all the Parallax Wave, that's really good. And even if you don't have mage,
what are you Plowshares in?
You mage on Plowshares.
Melee on Project.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. There's two kinds of games that Grotog plays against Enchantress, right? One portion is the prison game where they can't cast any spells or draw any cards, and the other is the beatdown game where they die before they draw enough interaction, right? And most of the time, like you play the prison game, but the beatdown game is like not bad, right? So the Enchantress decks are kind of cheating down on removal. So just imagine for a second that you have like turn 2 Korean Dryad, turn 3 Psychotog, right? On turn 4, you can deal 20 damage with just a few cantrips and a gush, and that's
Let's go.
and they
can't block really.
Well, they have to block, and then they're dead. So there's that, and then also sometimes you just like play Korean Dryad and you play Armageddon, and then the Armageddon gets the job done because they didn't draw their second.
I was thinking that you win a lot of Armageddon games. That's what I was imagining.
So you do win a lot of those. I will say that all told, you lose a lot of the time when you're not on the play, or they resolve an Enchantress and then resolve another Enchantress, and it got a lot worse when the deck contains 3 copies of Parallax Wave because it used to contain close to 0 copies of Parallax Wave. And was just trying to like solitary confinement you or whatever. Anyways. So
I want to bring back Sam's Enchantress deck. I feel like Sam's Enchantress deck has some interesting things to go about it, and it's not going to be vulnerable to scour in the same way that the contemporary Enchantress deck.
Yeah, this is obviously true, and it's a great pick so long as people aren't running 8 copies of Stone Rain against your 8 copies of one.
Oh yeah, it's weird. I guess like there's a lot of interplay in the fixed format. You didn't read my article?
I did, and we should get to that at some point. So I just want to close the loop on like Meddling Mage against Grotog. I will say that I have been just grinding Grotog, and I've been playing 0 Meddling Mage.
You've been grinding Grotog?
For the listeners and for everyone, I actually don't grind that much Grotog absent a tournament to play in. So I would play it a lot.
All of your YouTube videos that like half your YouTube videos are slight variations on Grotog.
That's not true, actually. The majority of my YouTube videos are like random nonsense, and I also played a lot of Oathbonzer recently, but I kind of wanted to...
It is true. There's slight variations on Oathbonzer.
Yeah. I've probably put up like 15 to 20 matches.
Glow Rider.
Yeah. Well, Glow Rider is sick. But the Grotog... So the Grotog angle, the Grotog grinding has mostly just been like, I needed to basically figure out like what Grotog... Like... if I can beat Replenish and Enchantress without Meddling Mage, and I arrived at a build that, because this is like the thesis in hedging, right? So we talked about the thesis, and we should also talk about hedging. So 1 Brain Freeze in your Dreadnought deck is a hedge, and obviously you can draw it against the red decks, but it's a pretty good hedge, right? And a classic hedge is to like buy options on a stock and then short sell the stock, right? And so you kind of have this like whatever. Anyways,
really are just all in on the finance.
Yeah. Go look it up. So but Brain Freeze is an excellent hedge because basically you're saying like, oh, I think Dreadnought's going to be good, right? And I think that Counterspell, Foil, Gush, Phyrexian Dreadnought, Stifle, and Vision Charm are good cards, and so you run 4 of all those cards in your deck. But you might be like,
different in a Magic deck and being a singleton and being a deck full of cantrips, right? Like if you play one, like what's those singleton people play in a burn deck, right? Like I don't know, 1 Goblin Cadets.
Let's say one Earthquake. Goblin Cadets
doesn't come up that much.
Goblin Cadets is not a good example because Goblin Cadets is actually
like the 9th.
It's the 5th. Yeah, it's the 5th or 9th. Yeah. So, no, Brain Freeze. I'm just gonna get ahead of what you're saying. Obviously, the potential impact of Brain Freeze as a hedge, and really similarly like the Ray of Revelation that's been in and out of the main deck of Grotog as a hedge, is increased by the fact that Brain Freeze is good in games that go really long. You are likely to play games that go really long when Brain Freeze is good. And also, when Brain Freeze is bad, there are more than usual ways for you to avoid drawing Brain Freeze. You could just
impulse and flash past it. That's one thing, even in the
exactly.
That it's bad. So but the thing is that if you have a singleton in your deck, right, like a single copy and you just draw 7 cards, right? The likelihood of it being in your hand and your opening hand is about 1 in 8 or 1 in 9 games. The thing that people don't understand is whether you mulligan or not doesn't change that. So if you mulligan once, it's still 1 out of every 8 or 1 every 9 games. If you mulligan to 4, it's still 1 out of 8 or 1 every 9 games. You just have to put some cards on the bottom of your library, right? So, however, in a deck that has cantrips, the chances of seeing a singleton in your first 10 cards, right? Or a card is the wrong word because you have cantrips, right? Your first 10 cards is very high, right? It's like 1 in 3 games, right? And but people don't like realize that. And that number is greatly magnified in a deck that has AKs, Opts, Peaks, Chromatic Spheres, like whatever you're doing to churn through your deck at a greater rate. Seeing those cards is going to go up. So if you have a card like Brain Freeze, which is a singleton that actually enjoys having, lots of cards being cast, it is very powerful, but you also just don't see it in your opening hand, 8 out of 9 times, which is like great because it sucks in your opening.
But it's actually a good example for like why Chromatic Spheres, Isabelle, and Peak are like also not good because let's just kind of like change the scenario slightly, right? So Brain Freeze is a card you don't want to draw in certain scenarios. Some X percentage of the time, right? You also have somewhere between 17 if you're Dreadnought, 20 lands in your deck, right? Which the way that these decks are structured, your general game script is like, I want to hit X land drops and then stop drawing lands for the rest of the game. And so
not in the Brain Freeze games. The Brain Freeze games, you just
not in the Brain Freeze games. I'm just kind of talking about like, just say you're in like this sort of like you're trying to balance your non-land resources with the amount of lands, right? So you want exactly as many lands as you need to cast all your spells. Your spells happen to be cheap, thus it is like very, very, very important. Especially for a deck like Grotog, Dreadnought, obviously it varies, but especially a deck like Grotog, and we can also extend this to Replenish, right? Grotog really wants to hit the first 4 land drops in a row. And after it hits those first 4 land drops, assuming that your opponent isn't like doing Wasteland Port Armageddon nonsense, you just want to stop drawing lands forever, right? There's just not a lot of things. Like the only exception is like, I want to play Psychotog and have Counterspell up. And I'm like, in that situation, just gush, get your 5th land drop, right? And then hold up Counterspell with 3 lands and play 1
You
tap.
never like 2-spell to Call of the Herd during the window when you're playing Call of the Herd?
So fun fact, Call of the Herd is back in the deck. And that's another prior check because basically I was just like, you probably can't play Call of the Herd because you don't have Mox Diamond, and casting Call of the Herd with Gemstone Mine is like rough, right? You lose 2 mining counters. And then I was like, what if that just doesn't matter at all? And
well, especially if you only want to end on 4 lands, right? Like this hedges your ability to end on 4 lands.
Well, okay.
You will end on 4 lands one way or another.
Yeah, because your lands will disappear. The real reason I added it was just because like I cut AKs from the deck, and I was just like, well, where's my card advantage? I'm like, my card advantage is
Gush. Card advantage.
Yeah, my card advantage is Gush. My card advantage is Armageddon, and I'm like, but I cut 4-ish. I cut 3 card advantage spells, right? When you cut 4 AKs, you only cut 3 card advantage spells. I cut 3 card advantage spells.
I told you should have been a game designer. You have a really good thought process around something.
I would love to chat with Gavin sometime because I have this overarching thing, this like sensitivity that I have to every card, every mana, every tempo, and every point of damage, right? Like the beauty of pre-modern mana bases is that like a Dark Our Waste and City of Brass are just like extremely fair trades, right? They're not better or worse than what they are. They're just like exactly as good as like a fetch land or a basic
Dark
land.
Our Waste is so much better than City of Brass, even though on paper they're like very close to the same.
The point is that that they are so close that the things that make a Dark Our Waste good versus City of Brass good means that it's always a choice. But anyways, that's a design question. So, the Call of the Herd thing was just like, where's my card advantage coming from? Because I needed it back. So I re-added the 4th Gush. I'm like, Armageddon's technically card advantage. And I was like, I just want a tiny little bit more. And so I put the Call of the Herds back over a couple Psychotogs so my creature package is 4 Dryad, 2 Psychotog, 2 Call of the Herd. What were we talking about before? You want to hit exactly 4 lands and then stop.
Can we say you want to have exactly 4 lands, or just different than hitting exactly?
I mean, you want to have exactly X lands and stop, right? And so if your deck contains Peak, and if your deck contains Urza's Bauble, you have no control over whether or not that card's going to be a land. And that's like the great. Oh,
you just draw whatever the rate of your lands, you just draw it.
Yeah. And if you ask me, like, the worst part about being like a Xerox player is one of two scenarios. One, drawing a land for your turn. Ouch. And 2, casting Sleight of Hand and looking back at 2 lands.
At 2 lands? So
I've literally... So let me just quick. So your hand, Grotog, you got a pretty good hand. You got 2 islands, a Flooded Strand, and a City of Brass, and a Sleight of Hand, and a counterspell, and let's say like X, Swords of Plowshares, Fire Ice, maybe another cantrip, right? You're like, oh, that's a pretty good hand. It's got a lot of lands, right? But I do need those lands, and it's got all my colors. I've got a lot of optionality, right? And then you cast the Sleight of Hand, and then the Sleight of Hand reveals 2 more lands, and then all of a sudden your pretty good hand just got like really, really bad. And then maybe your draw step, you draw another land, and then you're just like, oh, I'm questioning everything. Maybe this Xerox theory doesn't work at all, which is actually
it's the same as 3-pointers in the NBA. 3-pointers in the NBA are overpowered. Some people think they shouldn't be there because they're so good, right? Some people think they should be worth 2.5 points.
2.5 is good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but like
they do need to be nerfed, right? They need to be rebalanced.
Teams that rely on the 3-pointers go cold sometimes. And you see in the playoffs all the time, and they just go cold. And this team is like this preternatural offense in the regular season. Now just lost by 40.
Okay, so
right? And they're like, oh well, layups got you.
This is the other thing. This is the other thing about accumulated knowledge, which is this: it just draws cards. It doesn't look at them. So you're just drawing. Sure, you drew 2 cards, but like drawing 2 cards, one of them a land is one of them a spell, is like pretty close to Sleight of Hand. Obviously, you can pitch that card to foil. Obviously, you can do things with the extra land.
Tonnage matters, right? It depends. Like if you're in a matchup. So here's a really good example.
Well, let me before you get into
Dreadnought versus Dreadnought, right? Like all that matters is like tonnage.
Yeah.
Because like you make Dreadnoughts, I make Dreadnoughts, and I just block.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and then you run out of Dreadnoughts, and I kill you with Brain Freeze.
Well, you have an exceptional use of extra lands, which is that one actually having lands in plays. Having lands in play is value, right? Because if you can hard cast a foil, you're saving 2 cards, and then all of a sudden your hands that have 2 or 3 foils in them become a lot better. But I will tell you the thing, and you might remember I said this. I had the LobsterCon Grow deck, right? And I dubbed it Perfect Grow. I was like, this is a perfect deck. Okay. I was like, It's got all the best cards. It's got Swords of Plowshares, Counterspell, a couple foils,
3 Gush,
Fire Ice, 3 Gush, and it's got the best creatures. It's got 4 Psychic Dog, 4 Dryad. I don't need anything besides those. And I'm like, what do I've got on the other side? I've got 20 of the best card draw spells in the form, the most efficient cards, all 12 1-mana cantrips, 4 accumulated knowledge. What do I have on the other side? I've got 20 lands. The mana base is a little shaky, but it gets the job done. And then I was just like, wait a second. So you're telling me that I built a deck that has 20 spells that do things, 20 card draw spells, and 20 lands. If you just take out the card draw spells, my deck is just like 20 lands and 20 cards that do something. I'm like, and I have this problem where I feel like I'm flooding a lot of the time. I'm like, because half of my deck is virtually lands. And I was like, this deck sucks. What have I done? And it did kind of come around, which is just that, like, okay, well, this deck was just like really good at beating the Rock and Moneyball, right? I played all the test matches against BK. I was beating him, but at the end of the day, there was like this one sort of leak where I didn't balance.
You did not beat Stasis.
I didn't beat Stasis, but we only played game once against Andreas. Anyways, all that is to say, cantrip decks want to hit exactly the right amount of lands and stop, and similarly replenishes just a deck like that. It doesn't use cantrips, it uses looting, and cantrips are pretty good at that, and obviously they're not infallible. People have been complaining so much about flooding in their Grotog deck that they're like, well, instead of Peak being the 13th cantrip, have you considered Trade Routes? To which I said, interesting. So you're telling me I can use my gemstone mines forever? Like if you like port my gemstone mine.
You know, Bob Maher won a Pro Tour with Trade Routes in his deck.
But did he also have gemstone mine? Because that would be it.
I think he might have.
Because Because like
I don't think so. If he had like Tundra, he probably didn't have gemstone.
Just
Maybe
one day in my life, I just want Andy Levine to be like, port your gemstone mine. I'm like, sure, Andy Levine, pick it up with trade routes, play it, play a colored spell.
You're just falling into the trap. You're waging a land war in Asia.
It's loose action is fair enough. Anyways. So there's that topic.
We're going to talk about my white control deck.
We're talking about hedging, and I want to talk about your white control deck because this is the most Mike Flores deck that has ever been made, and I will tell you why. Okay, let's head over. Okay. Let's head over to 5withflores.twitter.com or .instagram.com.
Oh, I'm going to write this article. Did you read the article?
Yeah, and go to.
I think it's the best thing I wrote this year.
I would,
but it's not up yet.
I would hold off on saying that your 3-0 victory at FNM was
I don't
equivalent.
Care about the strategy. I think it's a good article.
Okay, all right. So this is why the this is the most Flores deck of all time. So people associate a lot of things with Mike Flores, and fundamentally, some say that he's a deck building genius. Some say that he's one of the great deck builders of all time. Somewhere in the deck building Hall of Fame. And my take is that if you go back and look at the famous Mike Flores bangers of all time, you realize they all have one thing in common, which is that they play the maximum possible number of sideboard cards that they can across all 75 cards, not just the sideboard. So Mike is the genius that said, like, well, if we have 4 Vampiric Tutor in our deck, then that just means we have 5 copies of every single sideboard card in the format. We can never lose. Lo and behold,
John cast 2 parishes in game 1 in the top 8 match.
Exactly.
2 parishes in game 1.
Exactly. So, allow me to introduce you to Mono White Control Splashing Green for Guy's Blessing.
28 and Me is the name of the deck.
28 and Me. I'm going to list the sideboard cards that are in this deck. 3 Phyrexian Furnace, arguably 2 Guy's Blessing, 3 Sabo's Web, 4 Abeyance, 2 Disenchant. Disenchant's a sideboard card, get over it. 2 Renewed Faith, some number. I wish
I had more. Renewed Faith was so good for me.
One Akroma's Vengeance, and some number of Wrath of God. Wrath of God is obviously about as good as a main deck card.
If you're a dopey white control deck or white blue or white whatever color deck, you need some kind of Wrath of God.
Yeah.
You need it.
You literally have to have it. And then obviously the usual suspects. You've got your Decrees, your Eternal Dragons, Swords of Plowshares. I mean, Swords of Plowshares is like, again, it's not a sideboard card. It's the only reason it's not a sideboard card is because it's target rich.
Because all the good decks have Swords of Plowshares targets.
Now, this is not to say that playing main deck Furnace, Web, Abeyance, and Renewed Faith, which all draw a card, and Guy's Blessing, which all draw a card, and Akroma's Vengeance, which also draws a card. Like, it's not to say that it's a bad strategy. It's just like I would just like to point out that this card is like, what are we at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 12, 16, 17. We have 17 cards in our main deck that are like, I'm a sideboard card, but also I cycle, right? And that's before we get to the sideboard. My actual sideboard cards are bizangers. Which includes 2 Rune of Protection red, just in case you need to cycle
here's
this.
The thing. You side out Sabo's Web against Dreadnought, and you side in Rune of Protection red.
Yeah, exactly.
It's slow cycling
because it's instant speed cycling. Okay. The other cards in the deck. I didn't
see that. That's in the plan. That would, if I sold sideboard guides, that would be in the sideboard.
Anyways, the other cards in the deck are like
Colony listeners.
Swords of Plowshares banger, Tithe banger, Eternal Dragon, Decree of Justice bangers, and you've got your two Temple of Foskot, 2 Forests, and then otherwise you've got 16 Plains and 4 Windswept Heath. The sideboard containing even more sideboard cards, of course, is Tormod's Crypt, 3 Arms Chant, 2 Rop Red, 1 Warmth, 1 Powder Keg, 1 Angel for kicks, 2 Scour, 2 Scour, 1 Aura of Silence, and 3 Sacred Ground. Sacred Ground being like the most sideboard card of all time, perhaps. I mean,
Do,
obviously, Rushwood Legat is a bigger sideboard card,
do you
but
know this story? And I think it was 2003. The best performing deck in the U.S. Open was my green white deck, and then Kibler played my green white deck in the main event, made top 8, and then ended up losing to Affinity anyway. You know this story, right? Like it was like this deck, right? It's like Eternal Dragon Decree. It was green white, but then the sideboard strategy was to side into Tooth and Nail. So we used our mana engine to make Tooth and Nail. Like it was like 2 Darksteel Colossus, 4 Tooth and Nail, and then 4 of like the Stone Rain that gets a land, basically. That was a Creative Transformation. Yeah. So do you know this story or no?
The story I know from the area is Nauchin and Astral Slide. I don't know about this green white deck.
No. It was the best performing deck in the U.S. Open, and then Kibler XO'd the Swiss and made top 8, and then ended up losing to Affinity anyway. I got to fight with him because I said, you need to have this sideboard card and this set of this sideboard card, and he lost a Skull Clamp, and he had the remove an artifact creature card instead of a disenchant, which is what I told him to play, and I'm like, you lost because you couldn't disenchant the Skull Clamp, right? Anyway, the reason I didn't qualify myself with this deck was because Seth Burns said I was a coward. So I said, I had Sacred Ground in my sideboard. And he said, "Oh, are you a coward? What are you going to lose to?" I'm like, my deck is so good. I think I can only lose to the card Flash Fires. So in 2 of the 2 matches I lost in the Swiss, I won game 1, and then I got Flash Fires by Goblin decks in games 2 and 3 both games. And my deck cannot function unless it has like 7 plates in play. And
man, that sounds.
I just had these stupid Temple of the False God in play, right? I just can't do anything.
My personal opinion on this is akin to like the people who can just eat through the Ozempic, right? I'm just like, you've got 38 lands and all cycling cards. Just play a few lands and then let them get in you. But I don't mind the sacred. I actually don't mind the Sacred Ground, mostly because you astutely included 0 meaningful targets for disenchant in your main deck, and if your Armageddon opponent wants to play disenchants to counter your Sacred Ground sideboard plan, that tends to be a win. Although you do have 3, so it does kind of like go back into a loss.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm definitely just going to lose to Gat if I don't have it, right? That's
yeah.
Problem, right? If they go Armageddon Psychotog, I'm dead.
The mistake is that you publish your list, right? So I'll just play like the 2 Ray of Revelations, and then you'll never have Sacred Ground in your
yeah, that's
ever.
very problematic for me.
Yeah.
Then there's no other solution, right? Like, so one of the things that's been going around in New York, like the thing that like a lot of the smart players, like Andy Levine will be a good example, right? Andy Vollmer will be a good example. They'll just say whatever their strategy is, and then ... I have no idea how it would beat the Brain Freeze, right? Like, there's just no combination of cards that let you beat the Brain Freeze with whatever white control deck they have, right? So Andy Vollmer obviously is famous for playing land still. Andy Levine just recently 3-0'd a league with the blue-white, I don't know what to call it, the AAA AK deck. And his just can't beat the Brain Freeze. So I was just like, I can beat the Brain Freeze, right? And so I figured out not just to play Gaia's Blessing. Gaia's Blessing is just level 0. Like, if they just blow their Brain Freeze and lose to the Gaia's Blessing, it's their fault, right? But you could beat Gaia's Blessing Stifle with this deck. And but now I also just wrote about how you could beat Gaia's Blessing Stifle, so maybe someone will figure it out.
Well, yeah, it's hard for the Dreadnought opponent to get enough Storm to Brain Freeze you, and then hold back a counterspell for every copy of Orm's Chain or Abeyance you happen to have in your hand, and also have a Stifle, because you need Storm for Brain Freeze. So you can't hold like double counterspell Stifle. That's 3 cards. Brain Freeze is your 4th card. Your 3 other cards need to generate.
You might need Storm. 2 Stifles, right? That's the thing, right? Like, it is possible you need 2 Stifles.
Well, you shouldn't like go for the Brain Freeze.
Right?
You shouldn't go for the Brain Freeze line until they've put a Blessing into their graveyard. Just because, yeah, if you need 2 Stifles, then what are you doing? Like, yeah, if your 2 Gaia's Blessings are at the bottom of your deck, then
they're cooked.
Yeah, they're cooked, right? But the odds are they're in your like top 25. Well, one of them is at least in your top 25, and you've had to cast it.
Yeah, I think we have to play the third Gaia's
Blessing. Yeah. Which is just Sam was saying, cut any card in the deck. But So you have tried to play some number of, I mean, this deck used to contain like Thran Dynamo, right? And it was just like some
Well, yeah,
other
so
thing.
I think the things, first of all, the things that put it over are there's no Parallax Tide anymore, right? So you can't Sacred Ground a Parallax Tide,
Yeah.
right? You could Sacred Ground a Cataclysm, you could Sacred Ground an Armageddon. You're probably going to lose game one, right? But you could Sacred Ground those cards, right? That's one of them. And then the second thing that I thought was good is the innovation of Scour. Like, if you land a Scour, your opponent just loses.
Yeah.
So, like, that's like a very Mike Flores way of thinking about how to make it act.
No,
right?
I'm
like,
Scour is definitely interesting. I'm obviously sensitive to the fact that it costs 4 mana and that it doesn't work if your opponent has Decree of Silence in play, but of course.
yeah, but you gave me technology that is going into version 1.0 or 1.2 or whatever. So Lanny said, hey, why don't you play Seal instead of Disenchant? Then you can seal the decrees and then just cast Scour.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds great.
And I will also add that this only works because Scour is an instant, right? So you seal the decree, and your opponent, who's obviously a genius, they're playing Replenish, they're a super genius, is going to say, okay, well, I'll wave out the decree. And it'll be like, okay, decree is waved out. Now I will cast Scour targeting Opalescence. And they will say, shucks, I can get my decree back, but my Opalescence isn't going anywhere. So cases in where this doesn't work particularly well, if they have 2 Decree of Silence or if they have 2 Opalescence. But
so I think
that's why you have a Tormod's Crypt. And you have a Bance as well. So you've got some help.
So I think this deck is badly behind Replenish in game one. And I never played the sideboard games, but I think we at least have a chance because of Scour. And I think that I'm way ahead of Dreadnought.
Well, you have 3 Furnace main deck as well. So you have Scour, Crypt. You're going to bring in 2 Scour, Crypt, 3 Furnace. You'll have 2 Seal Cleansing access. You have 4 Bance if you want to a Bance in response to Wave entering play, and then disenchant either the Wave or the Opal. And then, once again, Furnace is going to do quite a bit of work there. And
I mean, Furnace and Crypt are good against them than if you have a Bance or Orange Chant, right? Like, you can keep them from doing anything bad to you in like a single turn sequence, right?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if they like one sequence would be like they don't have anything in their graveyard, but they have an attunement in play, so they abance you, and then you just chant them back, right? And then you're like, okay, cool. Now they can't hurt you. But that's yet to bore out, and then you also obviously are about as good as a deck that has, infinite resistance to Dreadnought can be. You have additional resistance against Brain Freeze. Against Enchantress, you have Anachroma's Vengeance. And then you're just kind of... how do you feel about Wrath of God against Argothian Enchantress?
I would cast it if I could get one. I would
mandatory.
Certainly cast it if I could get 2.
You would never board out any copies, right?
I don't know. I what am I siding in? Scour or
powder keg for Enchantress?
I don't know, man. I didn't think about. I didn't map out my sideboard. I just put a bunch of cards that I liked. So I was just like, oh, how many Rop Reds did I play? Like my level 1 thinking is Rop Red is better than Cop Red because I can cycle.
Yeah. It's so you can upgrade your Sabo's Webs to it. Let's not forget that's why it's here.
Oh yeah, I can also upgrade my Sabo's Webs in matches that Sabo's Webs isn't good. Then my next level thinking is, if I have a Rop Red in play, then a second Rop Red isn't redundant the way that a Cop Red is. I'm like, oh, cool, because I can cycle it. And then my next level thinking is, why don't I just play Warmth? Because if Warmth and Rop Red together is probably pretty good. And I think my deck's probably pretty behind against Red in game 1. And I might need even more red sideboard cards. So, I think maybe I don't have enough. Maybe I should have another powder. I think my Angel should be a powder keg.
You're leaning really hard on. Yeah, I mean, powder keg is such an awkward card against red, anyways. But you're leaning on this.
I need to have something, right? Like the problem is, I think in game 1 they're just so far ahead. Like if you don't just
because you're busy casting, blessing, Sabo's Web in advance. You're just like,
my deck doesn't seem good against red in game 1. What do you want me to say? I agree.
This is just like this is like if this was like a portfolio, you have like 30 hedges, right? Your portfolio is all hedges. Like you're like, well, Well, if the market goes,
I'm really losing to the passive investor now.
Yeah, if the Rishanen Port goes, if the market goes Rishanen Port, I've hedged with Salvo Swift. If the market goes Dreadnought, I've hedged with the Bants. If the market goes with graveyard decks like HFEB or whatever, I've hedged with Phyrexian Furnace. It's honestly like a thing of beauty. It's just like the most hedged. It's the most hedged Magic the Gathering deck I've ever seen in my life.
So funny thing, I lost 3 games on the night, so I won all 3 of my matches 2-1. 2 of the games I lost with 7 planes in hand. 7 planes, not like. So like I would cast a Tide and then I would play a different land, even though my opponent knew that I had 2 planes in hand, because like I needed to like maybe Windswept Heath away a land so that maybe I would draw an action spell.
Yeah.
Didn't draw an action spell.
Those are one of the funnier spots to me, is like when your opponent knows about lands in your hand and then you draw your card for your turn and like, God damn it, I have to play the land I drew because the game is forcing me. But
you have to play Windswept Heath, you know, like
you have
7 planes in hand. But
it doesn't. So
deck thinning it is.
So so the deck is all hedged. What would you say is the thesis of this deck?
I think like white control as a strategy in pre-modern, like onslaught block centered white control, has always been one of my favorite strategies. Back in the red-white Rifter days, it was good against that era's big 3, right? It's really good against Landstill, excellent against mono red, excellent against Elves, right? So I don't think this deck is nearly as good against mono red or Elves, obviously.
Yeah.
But
you could always slide the Rune of Protection's red around. You can just swap your webs and reds.
Swap my hedges. No, the big delta I made right before the tournament was to take out my 4th Sabos Web for the 3rd Phyrexian Furnace. I was just like, well, are there times I'd rather have a Phyrexian Furnace than a Sabos Web? I'm like, yes, and it costs 1. And I'm like, Sabos Web's super fucking embarrassing, a lot of the time.
Well, yeah.
Like that's the problem. It's very embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, Phyrexian Furnace is 1+1, which is definitely good because there are odd number turns where you have an odd number of mana sources in play.
Yeah. So the thesis of the deck is like it's a lot of cantripping. So even though you're not a blue deck, you can keep your cards moving. You can keep 7-card hand a lot of the time. But I think that the thing that put the deck over the top, because like I said, I've been trying white-based control decks in pre-modern for years, for like 4 years or whatever. Is Tide. Like I never played Tide before. And so you think you're so clever, right? You're just like, you have placed Windswept Heath on the 2nd turn and then you Tide Windswept Heath by holding priority. You unlike me, you know how the stack works or whatever, and you can do that. And that can help you conceal the fact that you have Forest for Guy's Blessing in your deck. So in round 2, like Byron wins his round, I win my round.
Well, then you should play some Flooded Strand too.
Yeah. Well, he goes, how many Guy's Blessings? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm playing a mono white deck. He's like, I saw you cast it. And I'm like, fine. More than 1. How about buddy?
You just try to gaslight him. You're like, I didn't cast it.
What are you talking about? I have a mono white. But I got 16 fucking plays.
Yeah.
Windswept Heath so that I can hold for Tide. You don't get double Tide very often, right? If you draw 2 Tide, the second one's probably just...
The second one's the plane. I mean, I think the first one's awesome, right? You've Decree of Justice in your deck, and you have Temple of the False God in your deck, so these are all cards that like...
So I think we could cut a land, but it would have to be the Temple. You can't play like land and have...
Yeah, I mean, you could also cut a Tithe. If you're saying the second one it doesn't hit,
no,
you can cut a Tithe.
I think I'd rather cut the Temple and play Forest. I mean, I'd play 3rd Guy's Blessing. So and then cut a Disenchant and play Scroll Rack maybe.
Yeah, these are some of the Sam Black's suggestions. If you do like,
the problem is
Scroll
Rack is not friends with Chroma's Vengeance.
Yeah, that's true. But both of the cards can I think it's like you can at least cast the Chroma's Vengeance first, right? Or not cast the Scroll Rack if your opponent is playing Enchantress.
So, anywho,
or you'll just be in a spot where you need it, you rack for 10 or whatever, because you need to find a Chroma's Vengeance because it's your only out, and then you cast a Chroma's Vengeance, and then guess what? You have Guy's Blessing, so you blessing back your score.
Guy's Blessing the rack back.
You actually Guy's Blessing both the rack and the Akroma's Vengeance back, because you'll probably need them both. Yeah.
Okay. So the thing that was compelling to me about Sam's argument was I literally lost 2 games with 7 planes in my hand. Right? Like the ability to exchange 7 planes for 7 something else is pretty good.
Skorek is pretty nice. So the thesis is sideboard cards in the main deck.
Conventional blue decks seem atrocious against this deck, right? Like you literally never cast a spell they can interact with, right? You just you just draw infinite cards with Eternal Dragon.
Landstill does not like to see this deck coming.
Yeah, so you have Web for their man lands.
Much in the vein of
top and
well, it's actually there's 2 interesting things happening here. One is just that like this is Rifter without the Rift, right? So your mana is just like a lot better. And
oh yeah, I mean like oh my god, the mana in Rifter is atrocious. If Rifter had good mana, like it'd probably be a top deck.
But all your card cycle, so you are still keeping the cycling part of Rifter. And then, you can get flooded out. So the cards that you do draw need to be worth, 1 point X of a card more often. And I would just be worried that if your opponent is like agnostic to, what do you have? You've got 12, you've got 14, let's call it, I mean, technically Decree of Justice cycles, right? But if your opponent is like indifferent to say 10 of your cards that cycle, which seems like a statistical possibility, then you're a deck with what is this, 28 lands.
I mean, you don't have any on rate cards other than Sword Spot.
Like I was just saying that oh, my deck's
in a real big machine.
My deck with 20 lands, 20 card draw spells that have selection, and 20 cards that do things is flooding out too much. And you're like, hold my beer. I've got 28 lands, not 20 non-selection card draw spells, and the plan is to flood. The plan is to flood so bad that I start considering making Angels with Decree of Justice.
Look, bud, I cast 3 Angels twice, and I won both of those games.
In any case, people should pick up the list on 5 with Flores everywhere you find socials, and of course, well, you actually haven't posted it in the Bougie Discord, so. But
no, I posted the article in the Bougie.
Oh, you posted the article in the Bougie Discord. Yeah, you actually get sneak previews.
It's going to be on my articles.
Yeah. I will also add that I did follow through and I made a something like $620 donation to duressfest.com. Good on my promise to send all the coffee that direction, plus a little bit more. Basically, all the coffee plus what would have been like an additional ticket. So thanks so much for your support, and your support also helps support Duress Fest, which has hit its goal, and we're all super hyped about Duress Fest coming in spring of 2027.
This is awesome, I mean, I guess this is a good season for 6-figure Magic Kickstarters. Patrick raised $178,000, I think, for Next Level Magic Forever. People are all talking about that last week.
Yeah,
some I got my
available at TOA and other various online things. You can check out Pat Chapin at Pat Chapin on Twitter if you want.
The P Chapin.
P Chapin. P Chapin on Twitter.
The P Chapin.
The P Chapin.
Yeah. So I wrote 2 chapters of this one, and I reread them because the funny thing, Patrick gives me a word count, right? And then I submit my articles, and then he's just like, "I gave you a fucking word count, and like these are both like too long, like by 100%." So I cut them down. My percentage of exclamation points in both of these articles was very high. But I'm like, wow, I don't normally write this many exclamation points, do I? Maybe I do, but the articles were just so small compared to what I normally write that like my compression of exclamation points is a lot. But the entire second section, there's section 2, which is Magic Strategy, is just Flores articles. He rewrote like 6 Flores articles. They're like, so if you like Flores articles, you'll like Next Level Magic forever.
Yeah, and it's got a
But I
pretty
wrote two myself.
it's got a pretty neat little book jacket, so I'm definitely into that.
But yeah, you raised 178K, which is great. And I don't know, maybe maybe the world has changed and self-publishing and crowdfunding and stuff like that is just gonna be better than having a job.
But yeah, well, we'll see. I
Let's
mean,
hope.
definitely sick. So on the market of pre-modern, the other thing that I was like thinking was like one of the market inaccuracies is like failing to be at equilibrium, which I wanted to talk about because your thesis could be too many people are playing Phyrexian Dreadnought. As a result, I'm going to play 4 Goblin Vandal and some 13 sideboard cards.
It was only 12, and he got me. I think not enough
So
people are playing first.
so yeah, you think not enough people are playing? So
By about half, yeah. I think
so
it should be about
you think
twice as many.
LobsterCon should have been 20% Dreadnought instead of 10%?
Well, I mean, first of all, let me take a step back. I don't have the same attitude towards MTGO that some people have, right? So I've always thought of MTGO as kind of like a sandbox that you can test things, and then if those things are successful, you can bring them into real tournaments. That's how I think about MTGO. Versus some people think MTGO is a good in and of itself, right? Like we play MTGO, we participate in MTGO, we have an economy on MTGO. People who don't live in New York City maybe make their living playing MTGO, right? Which is a thing that Americans don't necessarily know. Literally make their living. And still do, right? In 2026. And they certainly did when I was very active on MTGO in the early days. But if you look at the MTGO statistics, Dreadnought's about 10% of the population and 20% of the top eights. That leads me to believe that it is underrepresented because even all of the other best decks are like nowhere near that, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
they're
Well, so this is
one
actually
third or one fifth as good as that.
so I think that this number is possibly shifting, or that there's kind of like a constant tug of war, right? So sometimes a challenge will get published and it'll be like top 8 2 Dreadnought players, and then it'll be like 9 through 32 will be like 10 more Dreadnought players, right? Which is like I don't even think I'm exaggerating. Like I do think that there was like literally a third of the top 32 is Dreadnought or something crazy like that. So and then the next week everyone's playing Enchantress, right? And then I guess I assume that the week following everyone's going to be playing Replenish.
The Dreadnought decks on MTGO seem so homogenous to me, right? Like I look at the whatever listings come out, I just peruse them to see if there's anything interesting I should think about. Like, what's the name of that land that like you could sacrifice for any color? Like on the Bougie Discord, somebody posted a 5-color control deck that had
Seafloor Debris.
Yeah, I bought a set of Seafloor Debris because it was in a deck, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll make this weird deck at some point, right? So I do peruse the decks on MTGO.com, but it seems like they're just so homogenous. They all have like one Chain of Vapor and like a misdirection, and I'm like, why did I guess the ones that are performing now have 2 Back to Basics, no Sophos Web, in the sideboard. They're just so the same to me, and I just think it's weird. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think it's weird insofar as like if you think that your Dreadnought list is like within a fraction of a percent as good as it can be, right? And that last card can be Thwart, Misdirection, Brain Freeze, whatever the 18th land, right? Whatever you think that the last card is, it's kind of just like, who cares? Like the population is playing the first same 58 cards, right? What they do with the last 2 is just not going to actually show up in the deck. I think
58 is high, right? So I have more Flash of Insights than most people. Like I think the MCGO lists only have 1 Flash of Insight typically in the main deck. Kaplan plays Intuition.
I'd have to click around. I mean, the one I have up right now has 2.
So all right. Well, so Kaplan plays Intuition. I don't have intuition, but like their sideboards are way different than
Well,
sideboards.
sideboards tend to be like where you kind of like play around. But my point is, I don't think it's weird that the decks are like relatively homogeneous. Oh god, there's a peak in this one. But it's not weird to me that the decks are relatively homogeneous, because I do think that Dreadnought decks overall, when compared to, you know, maybe not replenishing, like Dreadnought, Replenishing, Enchantress are all relatively homogeneous decks, and I don't think that that's necessarily an accident. I'm not saying that they are not. I'm not saying that they're 100% accurate, but they are closer to accurate than Landstill or The Rock or even Burn or, of course, Grotog, right? Like, I think that these...
Burn is like, the Medvedev deck doesn't even look like a human made it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
It looks like a calculator.
But that's because there are more chips on the table. There's more equity to be gained for those decks. It is just very, very hard to advance your outlook when you're playing a deck that's already great. And as a result, when you start chipping away at the 60th and the 59th and 60th slot, it's just very hard to feel the difference of like, oh, this week I played a Thwart, next week I played a Misdirection. Thwart was good some of the time, Misdirection was good some of the time. Maybe I'll play one Thwart, one Misdirection, I'll trim the Flash of Insight. Maybe I'll trim the Powder Keg and play 2 Boomerang. Maybe I'll play whatever. Like, all of those things are just like, yeah, you're just splitting hairs. Like the first 58 cards...
The first 12 cards in a Dreadnought deck are very different. The next, like the 38 cards or whatever.
The first cards in your deck are winning so many of your games so much of the time that the percentage of the time that you won because of your Misdirection or because of your second Flash of Insight, because of your Thwart, it's just impossible to like
the first
ascertain.
12 are so good. There are people who don't even have Island in their deck. They do just fine with those first 12.
And then going one step further, you then consider that these people either play other formats or, like you said, they live in a country where they can where the their national currency or cost of living is supportable by Magic Online, and this is their job and time is money. They're probably not going to spend that much time even playing anything besides Dreadnought to begin with, right? I'm like, look, I could probably get this Spock Vita Loca guy on Grotog, and I could probably get his win rate, 1 or 2 points higher than his already extremely impressive win rate, right? But he'd have to learn the deck, and that would probably take him I don't know, 50 hours, right? And then that's 50 hours for a 1%.
Play my Dreadnought deck instead of like the MTGO Dreadnought deck. My deck's so much better in the mirror. Like, that's the thing that is flabbergasting to me. If you think that you're going to play against the Mirror, Enchantress, and Replenish, like, it's a little worse against Burn, like 2% worse against Burn.
Well, that's the point, is that like, just consider all that time as some form of expenditure when your 6-round sample of like any challenge on any given day, like you actually can't really reliably have a strong thesis about the challenge metagame, because it actually has so much variance, right? That it's possible that your hedge is just not that strong, and that you should just have like a nice, powerful, base portfolio of all the good blue cards and no brain freeze, simply because, sure, brain freeze is good in the mirror. You're going to win a lot of game ones in the mirror with brain freeze, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, the metagame is so dynamic online that like you might run the 1 week where, you play against only red decks and you draw the brain freeze a ton. And at that point, you're like, okay, well, I lost a lot, this week, and I only gained in weeks where I played against a lot of Dreadnought. And, unless the other Dreadnought players are also playing brain freeze, the worst it can get for me is 50%. And if you're a player of considerable skill, you probably have a high tendency to win the mirror anyways, which I have to assume that Spock Vita Loca and Luffy du Chapeau online, are doing with the Mono Blue Stifle Knot deck if, they repeatedly top 8, which is not to say that they never lose. In fact, they lose to me sometimes. But it is to say that like they're going to spend the rest of their time grinding, in the case of Luffy du Chapeau de Palia, Pioneer and Pauper on the side, and in the case of Spock La Vita Loca, other
Luffy is considered a pauper savant, so I guess he's doing a lot of or they is doing a lot of because the pauper circles are not Luffy, of course.
Luffy's the boss. Well, the Pauper circuit, I assume, also has like a heavy like online influences as part of its signal, right?
That's actually really interesting. There was a while when, like, when I entered Pauper, I was just solo on Mono Red Madness, right? And the Japanese had invented the Mono Red Madness deck with Sneaky Snacker and stuff, and they all deliberately would not 5-0.
Yeah, just hide the results. Yeah.
Never get up, right? Like, which is insane, right? Like, but they're like, no, just never went. So like the deck didn't propagate.
What were they hiding from, though? It's not like there was a Pauper 10K.
I mean, it's super good. The deck won Pauper Geddon last year, like, which is like a 1,200 person tournament.
Right, but it was
like a secret.
It was a secret last year. The Snacker deck was a secret last year.
Oh no! For a while. I'm telling you. By the time I entered the format, it was known.
I am asking you.
It was a secret for a while.
That would be like me hiding my Grotog list so that I can win league finals, right? It's just like, who cares?
They're not streaming. You have thousands of people watching some of your videos now. Okay, like but they were streaming.
But I have no incentive. Like, I'm asking what the tournament incentive was. Like, they would have been trying to win the Pro Tour if they were actually hiding tech, right? What was the Pro Tour for these Japanese?
These formats that I play, nobody cares about except for the people who play them, but we care a lot. I don't know, but they cared enough, and they wanted to hide the Mono Red Madness deck. I'm not kidding. They would deliberately not file.
Yeah. Well,
over and over
again. My point about the Magic Online metagame is that it's like approaching some form of equilibrium, or it's at least having this like push-pull vibes based, of course. Like, I haven't like done a statistical analysis of the challenges, but
math is dead.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, it does feel like Dreadnought pops off, and then whatever, everything else pops off too. And again, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry about the Discord notifications. I don't know how to do a global notification silence while I'm on the call, but I will ask Claude about that later.
So if I can't hear them, they're probably not getting recorded.
No, they're getting recorded because your audio stream comes on the same audio channel as the Discord notifications, which is just like a global, if my computer makes sound, the listeners will hear it. So anyway, sorry about the Discord notification pops. And
didn't you write an app to like vibe code an app to like help Magic content creators?
Yes, I did.
You put it on GitHub?
I did. And if you are a Magic the Gathering online content creator, many of you already delete the silence from your videos, but I made an app that deletes only silence that also has no on-screen action. So if you are tapping lands or figuring out your portent or passing the turn, it won't cut that out, so your viewers are not surprised by jump forward in time, and you don't have to talk endlessly over your videos, which has been a huge relief for me. Where
you've attacked a huge total addressable market on
of like 4
really big,
like
6 dudes,
like Bosch, LSV. Mengu, not really. Does Mengu do stream VODs? He might do stream VODs. Fran says he's not interested.
I watch everybody on YouTube. So it's weird to me that a lot of my favorite creators basically like stream on Twitch and then they take the VODs from that and then put them into YouTube. I know that they're doing it like intellectually, but I just never watch Twitch. I just watch things on YouTube when I feel like watching it. So like, it's weird, a few weeks ago when Jim Davis was testing for Sacred Torch and I was like watching him live on Twitch. And then like a few days later, those were videos on.
Right. So you like, oh, let's see what Jim Davis YouTube is up to. And you're like, oh, I already saw him beat Lanny with his. I saw
him beat Lanny. Like, oh, that was such a sad loss. I felt bad for you.
It was literally the same way. It's the same way that Dan loses. Just like, hand of only Gemstone Mine. Well, he had Gemstone Mine and City of Brass. In any case, what's next, tournament wise?
Wait, so you read my report. So you don't like it, or you do? I think it's the best thing I wrote this year.
Well, I think it's like 2 articles, right? There's 2 articles, and it's like apply like the you are basically kind of talking about, like, you're writing the article that most fans of pre-modern, want to read or want to write, which is just addressing the concept of whether or not pre-modern is solved, because many are saying that it's solved or will be solved, right? And then you're like, well, I have this mono white control deck, right, which didn't exist before. It's existed, like, some of the cards in it have existed in the deck, but it hasn't existed for in its current form. Ergo, pre-modern still has plenty of room to go. And I think that those are sort of two different things. Like, I think it's cool when you make decks, because it's a thing that I've been encouraging you to do relentlessly, because that is, I appreciate that the first thing that you brought up when I mentioned that my goal is to seek the truth, and you immediately were like, well, my goal is just to be happy. And I'm not going to be, like, I know that it doesn't make me happy to spend all day checking my priors. But I do think that this mono white deck is pretty cool. It's conceptually interesting from the, like, oh, look at this, like, very hedged portfolio. And it's interesting to think about.
Whatever the opposite of zero hedge is, right?
Like, yeah.
Like, well, zero hedge is like
burn as no hedge, right? Unless you play the Earthquake. Burn as no main deck hedge. But or, like,
Earthquake Jackal. There's a champion.
Look, man, I have never earthquaked my Jackal Pup and lost. I have never
earthquaked my Jackal Pup.
The reason why I don't respond strongly to it is just because I simply have a different thesis about pre-modern with regards to whether or not it's solved, which is just that, like, the solved state of a format is, like, just a spectrum or an axis, right? And as time passes, pre-modern gets more solved than the day it was before, right? It's like an entropy thing where, just like, the more pre-modern games get played, it will get closer to being solved. And it's not really a question of, like, oh, will pre-modern get solved or is it solved right now? It's just like, what is there left for me to do? Like, at some point, and you question happiness, I question it too, because at some point, like, the dopamine rush that I got from going from 4 Psychotog to 2 Psychotog and 2 Call the Herd is now unavailable to me, right? I can't do that next week. Next week I have to try trade routes, right? Next week.
Have you considered cocaine?
Yeah.
There's a lot of dopamine available there.
Yeah. Like, so I have been optimistically, you'd be like, well, Lanny's been playing and tinkering with this Grotog deck for 4 years. That's crazy. That pre-modern is a great format. If somebody, can feel engaged with the format through one deck, and obviously I play plenty of other decks and tinker with any other decks, and whatever. If somebody like me can play pre-modern endlessly and it's the only format they play, and they still enjoy solving the puzzle, and they still are looking to overturn new avenues of attack, new theses, new ideas about the metagame, and over 50 podcast episodes. We should see how many podcast episodes we've done. We probably blew past 100 and we didn't make any announcement about it.
Just ask Claude. I would. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I would ask Chat. Chat knows me real well. It's a little scary. He references other chats to me all the time.
We've released 117 episodes, so I think that probably shakes down to like 100 when you take out the bonus episodes and small episodes. So it was like, if you can make a podcast with 100 episodes, like, pre-modern is pretty deep. But the fact of the matter is, like, if I am almost scared of going back and listening to our old podcasts, because we know so much more now than we did then. And so the question is,
that was a year into me playing pre-modern, right?
Yeah. And let's flash. So what happens 100 episodes later? Do you think it's more likely that we'll feel similarly about us now? Or do you think that, like, 100 episodes from now, we're kind of going to be more like, well, we were pretty close.
One of the things,
right?
Most of the things that have kept pre-modern vital have at least, I think, like, tangentially revolved around bans. So I think the greatest influx of creativity in deck design happened when land tax got banned, right? Oath Pollution, all those different decks came out at the same time, with the mono green deck, the decks with Wild Growth, the Oath Pollution deck with Cataclysm, what ended up becoming the modern Oath Ponza deck. are all reactions to land tax getting banned, right? So that is a thing that happened, right? And I think we've seen a similar thing with the banning of Parallax Tide. So Parallax Tide gets banned, and Replenish was like, oh, Replenish sucks. No one can play Replenish anymore. But what do we see instead? Replenish adopts Decree of Silence, becomes arguably more powerful. It's, maybe it's B plan gets a lot worse and its A plan gets a lot better. It's a resistance to red gets a lot better, but its B plan does get a lot worse. But then we see other things like, would we have seen the mono blue deck that came out last week, the Force Spike Nevinrall's disc deck that won the challenge last week? Would that have happened if land tax and Parallax Tide were still in the format? Probably not.
Well, there were tideless mono blue control decks, but obviously they were much worse than the mono blue control decks with Tide. I think that obviously you're right that the bans produce a new pre-modern. But bans
and really interesting deck design. That's what I think.
Yeah. Well, bans by their nature are subtractive. I also do think I think that they're on the topic of like the banning of tax and Tide. I was thinking about it, and I was like, well, Dreadnought was sometimes good and sometimes bad against Parfait, depending on the list, right? Because the Parfait list there was the blue Parfait list and the Oath Parfait list, right? Replenish, in my experience, had always been good against Oath Parfait, and Enchantress, it was like 50-50. And I think it's really, really interesting to contemplate what would happen if next week we held a tournament called 2023 Pre-Modern and people, knowing everything they know now, could play Replenish with Tide, or maybe they just play Replenish with Decree of Silence, or they play Tide Control, or they don't play Tide Control, or they play Tax.
You have Tax as one of your... Well, okay. I immediately made this to do a PSS format, right? So it's not a PSS format. It's just a tournament.
Yeah, it's just a tournament. Yeah, it's a tournament where you can play Tax and Tide, right? And I think it would be really interesting... if this tournament was like played by a bunch of thinking players and, was iterated on enough, because I actually think it would be a great format. It might not be it might not be above the threshold of fun that people need in their pre-modern. Like I had a tweet that popped off last week that was like, pre-modern is great because it's unfun, but that's not like strictly speaking true, right? Pre-modern can't be great if it's so not fun.
So fun
that nobody wants to play. Well, most people, when they make the unfun arguments about pre-modern, they generally are saying stuff like, oh, Parallax Wave and Opalescence, or HFAB, like these rulesy things are unfun. Getting turned to Dreadnought is unfun. Foil is unfun. People like to complain, right? And my view on that is just that pre-modern needs to be like a minimum amount of fun, right? To like that people enjoy it even if they're not sickos, right? Like I'm a sicko, right? I think that like Tax and Tide are really fun. And I think that thinking about building a deck to beat land tax, like specifically like Grotog, being my favorite deck, has always been a deck that had answers to Tide, that had answers to land tax. And so I wasn't really bothered by the presence of those cards.
I think,
although, I will add, somewhat ironically, the reason why Grotog was good against land tax is probably somewhere in part due to the presence of Mox Diamond.
All right, so I think I would probably still be playing pre-modern if land tax never got banned, right? I was vocal that I thought Tide shouldn't get banned, right? But I would probably still be playing if land tax never got banned. And I might not be complaining about it. I might just be like, you know what, land tax should probably be banned, but I still play it. I don't think that we would have seen, kind of the explosive growth from like a 30-person tournament to a 50-person tournament to a 120-person tournament to selling out in 96 seconds if land tax hadn't.
Yeah, I think that's both. I think that's plausible.
I think that is probably the main downside. And who knows what would have happened on YouTube.
Yeah, I think that's plausible. Obviously, there's no way of knowing. But I do think that you can make a pretty strong argument for that. And I think that that's what I mean by minimum level of fun, right? And I also think that Tide had breached some sort of minimum level of fun where it's just like, on average, the average player, right? Because we're outlier players. We're just going to play pre-modern basically no matter what. And we have an exceptionally high pain tolerance, right? Like you and I, we'll sit there and probably like be happy.
Talk to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Think of the pain tolerance required for that.
Yeah, exactly. So we're happy to like I personally am happy. Like I think Stasis is like a fascinating and interesting deck, and the fact that it exists in pre-modern is like super cool.
I don't.
Right?
I hate everything about Stasis, but I'll still play it.
Not everyone.
I'm glad that it exists.
Not everyone shares that belief. I think that HFEB is a fascinating and interesting deck, and I'm very happy that a deck like it is pre-modern.
Everyone who plays HFEB is a bad person.
And I think that Replenish is like also like super interesting, because you're just like, this deck is all 4-drops, and yet it's one of the best decks in the format. Why is that? Especially when you say that the format is about mana control, right? And when I think about beating Replenish, I think that it's so interesting that, you know, my deck just gets better against Replenish.
What did you lose to at Sacred Torch?
Well, I was playing Replenish, and I lost to the Merfolk with the 1 Dreadnought. So like Days Foil,
you lost to Sean?
Yeah. And then and that was when I was 3-0. So Sean advanced to 4-0 over me, and then I lost the rubber match against Valkyrie, who was playing Landstill. That got me with the Furnace main. What's that?
Had you won, would you have made the top 8?
If I had won, I would have to look at my breakers and probably play, I think, the way that tournament shook out.
She made top 8, right?
Yeah, she made top 8, but she also played the final match, which was also against Replenish. So I think I would have had to play the final match, which could have been a Replenish.
She beat the Replenish guy who I threw against. Yeah.
Yeah. Crystal Ball. Shout out Crystal Ball. That was a really cool match on stream, and a shame that we didn't get to show the ending on stream because the stream crashed. But that was a cool one where there were 5 meddling mages in play, and Lan and I were deciding the name of the metal band that they should represent.
Wait. I thought I watched the whole stream. I don't have any recollection of this.
The very last round of Swiss is Valkyrie versus Crystal Ball, and it's Replenish against Landstill. And in game 2, there are 5 meddling mages in play. And it's hilarious.
I have no recollection.
And they're naming Swords to Plowshares, Parallax Wave, Replenish, and Opalescence. And one more hilarious card, Wrath of God, maybe. I don't know. And it's just like, oh, everyone gets to have their creatures.
Are they all Chris Bakula meddling mages?
They're literally all OG printing meddling mages.
Okay,
well.
There's no like Alara meddling mages.
Yeah. Respect to our
layers or anything.
Respect to Chris. But yeah, I think that Replenish is like an interesting, like I actually had this conversation with Brad, and he was like, I think Replenish is kind of boring. And if there is a deck that tilts me, sometimes it's obviously Enchantress, because I'm like, they drew 2 Enchantresses. But I got over that because I changed my deck a little and I started beating Enchantress more. And so that is to say that there's very little that pre-modern could do wrong for me, because I have fun playing pre-modern in every configuration. And if next week Oath was banned, or Survival was banned, or Parallax Wave was banned, nothing from Grotog is going to warrant a ban except for maybe Gush. But even if Gush was banned, I think all of those things would not necessarily hurt me or meaningfully reduce the amount of fun, because I have fun solving the puzzle. And so this all goes back to your point of just like, okay, well, the question of the solving of pre-modern is like, the big thing. And then I've always said, the 2 things. One, just like, if pre-modern is a board game, it would be infinitely replayable, right? Like, I've probably played hundreds of hours of vanilla Catan, and then when I got tired of that, I probably played 100 hours more of Catan Cities and Nights. And that's like not nearly as robust a game as 5,000 cards.
You've played 100 hours of pre-modern this week.
Yeah, exactly. Right, exactly. So I have 2 minds about it. One, which is just that, like, technically my enjoyment of pre-modern is probably following like some sort of like logarithmic curve, or at least like the pre-modern solution index is like some sort of logarithmic curve. And so that is happening. The real question is, does that matter? To me, the real question is, does that matter? Obviously, you can argue that it'll never be solved, or it'll be cyclical, or like equilibrium is too, like the equilibrium point of pre-modern is varied enough that it doesn't feel like a actual equilibrium. Like that's kind of Sam's basic argument, which is just that like the sideboard cards in pre-modern are so powerful that you could not possibly have a deck that breaches, that this sort of like, let's say 20-25% of the metagame, because the metagame adjustment will always bring it down.
It's all also like a weird implementation of the information cascades problem then, right? So the classic implementation of information cascades is the beach house, right? So you have like, I don't know, 20 of the best players in the world, and they all come to the conclusion that Abzane's board control is the best deck you can play, right? And for whatever reason, right? Like they're playing the slowest freaking Loxodon hierarch Debtor's Knell deck, and that wins with Vidigazi the City Tree. So it's just slow upon slow gain a little life. And Mark Herberholtz is in the beach house, and he's just like, huh? And he just makes this like low to the ground red green beatdown deck, and the result is obviously 20 of the best players in the world are like the other members of this house, right? None of them make day two, and Mark wins the pro, right? So I think like, what if everybody was just like, all right, we think Dreadnought's the best, so 19 out of 20 players is going to play Dreadnought, and then like one player is like Neil Sachs, and he's just like, I'm going to play a lot of Mog Salvages, and who's going to win that tournament? Probably Dreadnought. There's 19.
Yeah, there's 19.
Neil's got an above average likelihood of doing well,
Yeah, but the Dreadnought players in this scenario are not well calibrated insofar as if they know that there's 19 of them, then like they don't actually have an edge, right? Because their edge is
they have no Hydroblasts. Yeah. They have no Essence players. They only have Annals.
Well, okay. I guess it's an interesting question. It's an interesting question because let's suppose that. Well, I guess it's an interesting question because you have to suppose a lot of things. Because in this scenario, you would suppose that the lists are very static and that you're not trading against.
Yeah, like MTGO.
Yeah, sure. I mean, let's say it's static and you're one person and you're looking at this metagame, and Dreadnought's obviously the best deck. And it's obvious that X percentage of people are going to play Dreadnought. And so you made the statement earlier in this podcast. You're like, I think Dreadnought should be played at twice the frequency that it is. And so if that is your idea of how to attack the metagame, is just that like the room still cannot, like there are enough wins on the table that the room is going to give more wins to Dreadnought than if I played some kind of hater deck, right? So my question is that equilibrium, or what does that say about the format being solved? I mean, it kind of just says that the format's not like, it kind of says that the format's like not at equilibrium. And so you run this experiment a few times and a bunch of people are like you, and slowly but surely Dreadnought finally hits 20% representation, which is, double what it was before, which you think is kind of the equilibrium state. And then you would be like, okay, well, we're at equilibrium now, so everything should be 20% Dreadnought, 15% Replenish, 10% Enchantress, 4% Goblins, whatever, some sort of Nash thing that we cooked up. And then you're like, everyone's just going to be happy to play pre-modern with like that level of...
according to the distribution of what they're allowed to play.
Yeah.
It's like I've always had a problem with equilibrium arguments around Magic because it's so customizable. Like, what is Dreadnought? What is Dreadnought?
Yeah, but you're just but that just makes you an active. That just makes you an active trader. Okay, so this is the idea. Is obviously on average, every single person in the room on average will have a 50% win rate, right? This is how math works. So
yeah, sure.
But in reality, some rich Shay is going to have 60, 70, and some schmuck playing whatever we think is the deck we're ragging on, Black White Control or Landstill, which both top aided the event. Some silly deck has like a lower than 50. And over time, is it possible, or like over time, how much closer do you think people are going to get, each individual person is going to get to like actual 50, right? Because surely 5 years of pre-modern.
Does Richie have dementia in this?
I don't know.
70 years go by and his brain completely calcifies? Is that why it happens?
I actually think that Rich does have less edge now than he did before. I think I have less edge now than I did.
I have less edge now than I had before, right? Yeah. When I top 3 in my first LobsterCon, I had to explain the Parallax combo to people.
Yeah,
right.
And you barely knew how it worked yourself.
I also still don't know how it works. So that was so. Believe me, it's like HVAC.
So So that is closer to solve than not, right? Because like that's less entropy. That's more. That's getting closer to, you know, the market being at some form of equilibrium. Everybody has closer to 50% EV than they had before, and that's the deal. So I don't know. I think that's I like your article. I like that it addresses the solved thing. I am like pretty self-critical of like the solved conversation, because I think it's like, one, I don't like attacking people who have the position that it's solved, because a lot of them I think are arguing in bad faith, or just simply.
You think I attacked anyone? I literally just wrote things that they quoted, and then
Yeah, I mean,
wrote about a high jumper.
I think like rebutting the pre-modern is solved thing is like an interesting conversation, and I also think it's not the conversation that people are having, because when people say that pre-modern is solved, what they actually mean is that they are going to have more fun in formats where cards get introduced, right? Or they like that cards get introduced to formats, and they don't like that cards don't get introduced to pre-modern. And so fundamentally, they are like not on board with the premise, right? I have not met very many people who are on board with the premise of pre-modern, which is just that like, hey, pre-modern is a great format. Magic is a great game. Pre-modern Magic is a great expression of Magic the game, and are like, oh, but I do have less fun over time, and a solution to that would be like adding cards to pre-modern, right? Nobody's really in that.
The most fun playing Magic I think I have had my entire life.
Yeah. That's the thing, is like,
I don't play more Magic than anybody in the world, I think, ever.
I don't think it's I think it's like, I don't think it's like that much of a gray area, because I do think that like when you did see pre-modern get added to Magic Online, there was a lot of people like Bosch and Roll, like LSV, who played it for the first time, because and had said various things. Well, I mean, Bosch and Roll had obviously said various things about it, had played it, and they were like, oh, actually this is fun, and maybe it's not as fun for them as Legacy or Cube or whatever, but they were like, this is probably more fun than I predicted that it would be. And then you had plenty of other creators who played a bit of pre-modern and just decided that, oh, it's a little too mopey or too grindy, or the games are too long, or the interactions are too annoying, right? And there aren't that many people who played it and then played a lot of it and then were like, well, I've run out of ways to attack the metagame. I feel like it's solved. Because like most people like who are, well, one, there's not many people who are cooks, right? There's not that many people who are metagame attackers. Most people are passive traders. They're parking their portfolio in Dreadnought and letting it ride. They're parking their portfolio in Replenish and letting it ride, right? And they're just switching from Dreadnought to Replenish to Enchantress to Burn to Landstill to the Rock, maybe changing a few cards. Whereas, you know, you're out here sometimes and you're like, I'm building this crazy hedged like three leg parlay where it's like, if the meta is this and this and I have these cards, then I'm going to hit, right? And I'm the same way. Like I play my Grotog deck and I'm like, oh, this week I'm doing
our decks are full of card drawing. We're going to draw our Sabos way. Like that's how it is.
And we're changing our mind about, or we're changing our mind, or we're thinking about different things every single week that we play pre-modern. And I just haven't met somebody who thinks that pre-modern is solved or is going to be solved, and also thinks that, and is also trying to attack pre-modern in a different way every week, because I've attacked pre-modern differently every single time I play pre-modern for 4 years, and it's getting harder and harder as I do it, but I still enjoy doing it.
Always happens to be with the card Kyrian draw.
No, give me a little bit more credit. I have some insane decks on my YouTube that are insanely silly. I have Miri's Guile in my Miri's Guile in my Armageddon deck.
You have too many decks. I like pose. I'm like, oh, should I try this one? And you have like Lay of the Land deck. I'm like, oh, I'll play this Lay of the Land.
And I'm like, oh, that was like so 8 hours
yesterday.
ago. Yeah, I'm already playing like, Quiet Speculation. Yeah, I was like, hurry up, you gotta keep up. But anyways, that's my point. My point is nobody thinks on a rational basis that pre-modern is solved / is going to be solved, because that's not what they're saying when they say that. The only person who is saying that is probably closer to me, or, you know, some of the, like Billy's made the point that we're like mining for oil, we're digging for oil, and eventually it's going to run out. that like there's a finite amount of pre-modern tournaments that can be run in the universe, and we're just getting closer to that edge.
Well,
But
that's true because of the heat death of the
yeah, that's true because of heat death. I do think that pre-modern will probably die quicker than heat death, but much longer than you think. So that is my point. My point is
I gotta go, but I will just say one thing. Last week I had a game where I was on the draw, and my opponent made a first turn, like, I don't remember, some kind of mana elf. I played my land. They made a second turn Badger Mole Cub. This is a standard game. So on my third turn, I cast a card drawing spell to get my third land, and they made a second Badger Mole Cub. Now, I have a stock up in my hand, and I already have a Wrath of God. I have just used my cantrip the previous turn to get my third land. I play it. So I'm like, well, I need to cast this Wrath of God next turn. There's two Badger Ball Cubs in play, right? I can either leave up my mana for a counter spell, or I can cast the stock up and make sure that I have a land and hope that he doesn't deal 20 damage to me on my third turn. Okay, like, so I cast the stock up, which I think is the percentage play, and I didn't get a fourth turn. So that was one of only 2 games I lost in that league. And I will leave you with, this is what you prefer. Like, I literally had 2 decisions to make. One of them was, I hope he doesn't kill me before I get to untap, right? Like, I'm at 20. But then they banned Badger Mole Cub. I don't know. Maybe that's what you prefer. $75 secondary market price card that's less than 1 year old.
Yeah, that's just one. That's just one mythic. It's one mythic wild card. It's fine.
Yeah, but I mean, for people who play paper Magic, like I had to borrow my Magic.
Nobody plays paper standard anymore, though. That's the thing. So,
isn't that kind of horrible?
Yeah, it is horrible, but that's the truth.
So, I mean, like, I wish we lived in. I mean, I used to play paper standard every week. I mean, now I play pre-modern and Pauper, but Friday Night Magic was the center of my Magic universe.
It's effectively when we first met, playing paper standard.
That's how I met Itai and Pog, right? Yeah. We played in the same stores, you know? So I think the fact that, so those communities would never come up now, right? So Itai I think Pog was a populator of pre-modern and Itai was a populatee of pre-modern, but that just would have never happened if we didn't have the connective tissue of paper standard.
Yeah.
And
well, you're
the fact that that's not happening.
You're pushed in that direction by Hasbro. Well, not really, because you still play paper standard. You'll still do it if you.
No, I do not play paper standard. I play arena standard.
Well, yeah, you played. You were playing in RCQs up until like roughly last year, right?
Yeah, because I literally, I think you were the one who told me, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I don't have time to prepare to be a world-class standard. And the biggest problem was I was very confident I was going to win this tournament. I was like doing so well in standard testing. I'm like, I'm going to win this tournament. And I'm like, if I win this tournament, I have to play a modern Pro Tour.
Yeah, you have to play a Pro Tour.
No thanks. And so I just didn't attend. All right. So anyway.
All right. Love Spy Colony. Congrats to Dress
Read
Fest.
Mike's Substack.
Read Mike's Substack when it drops. And there was a lot of tournaments, and we didn't talk about them at all. And it doesn't matter. Go check out the other things going on in Magic. But yeah,
go to Rest Fest.
Yeah, go to Rest Fest. There was a stretch goal. If it hits 125, they get to lock in a date. They get to lock in the date and venue before December, which might make it a lot easier for everyone to make their travel plans. So there's still reason to donate. And if you send me a coffee with a note, hey, put this into Duress Fest, I will do that. But obviously, you can just do it directly.
There's reason to donate, because if you don't donate, it's going to cost you another $25 or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. 15, but yeah.
All right.
Love Spike Colony.
Bye-bye.